Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here. Today, we're going to get a little sentimental. What is your most controversial homebrew that's something precious to you? If you have something that's precious to you that's a little controversial that's homebrewed, leave it in the comments below. Now, I'm not a super old Dungeons & Dragons player, but I've been in and around the community for little over a decade. As a forever DM, I generally homebrew my game, and obviously I pick things up from others I've seen and read. I have a few things that are not actually rules, but I prefer, such as potions as a bonus action, etc. However, I would say all my changes are pretty minor and wouldn't overly offend rules lawyers. But I love seeing some stronger changes, and the hornet's nest it often kicks over. I want to know your most controversial homebrew rules, and I don't want any backlash from the opinions. This is a guilt and judgment-free zone to explain your darlings to me. Sorcerers have a detect magic light effect that is always on. Basically, they can tell when a level 4 or higher spell has been cast in the last hour in their immediate vicinity. Other spellcasters get this too, but much later down the line. To that effect, spells of levels 8 and 9 leave invisible semi-permanent marks on the spot where they were cast that can take generations to fade. It's not a full-on detect magic, so things won't show up with an aura and they don't automatically know what school of magic it's from. It's more like a feeling or a sense akin to a passive perception, which is how I rule it. It's more there to drive narrative or encourage roleplay. In the case of someone casting greater invisibility to sneak up on the sorcerer, assuming combat hasn't been initiated yet, they would only know where you cast it if they walked near it. They wouldn't have an inkling on your position just from this sense alone. I run high magic campaigns and I don't mind making my players stronger. They're pretty spoiled for items, but I also rewarded them with some custom feats after a tough story arc. My favorites are for the Grave Cleric and the Wild Magic Sorcerer. I call these feats Mom Friend and Get Bent Luck, respectively. Your Sentinel at Death's Door feature is improved. When you use this feature to cancel a critical hit, you may choose to channel Divinity, Path to the Grave as part of the same reaction. The target of Path to the Grave must be the creature you can see whose critical hit was cancelled, and that creature must be within 45 feet of you. Your Bend Luck feature is improved. When you use this feature, you roll 2d4 instead and choose which die to use. If the results of both dice are the same, add them together. I also gave the Fiend Warlock of the Chain a custom Eldritch invocation called Entropic Blast. Whenever you roll damage for your Eldritch Blast, roll 2d10 instead and choose the result. It does not have to be the higher result, but come on, it's probably gonna be the higher result. These are, without a doubt, raising the power level of the party, and I absolutely do not care. I can always make some more monsters, and the whole party loves when an enemy's crit suddenly means that the bad guy is gonna take double damage instead. Anyone can use spell scrolls using the same DC of 10 plus spell level intelligence check to cast. All warlocks get a tablet and can copy extra invocations, usually situational ones, that they find off of cultists and the like. For my homebrew world, I made gnomes a tiny race and changed some of their features. Having tiny characters is probably bad, and none of my characters have been a gnome yet, so I don't know if it's balanced, but tiny gnomes are a funny concept. I stripped Hex Warrior off of the Hexblade Patron, added it to the Pact of the Blade, and reworked the flavor and spell options for Hexblade to be a Grim Reaper / Cursed related patron. Everything in that subclass apart from the Hex Warrior feature fits a Hex Necromancer Warlock so well. I don't think I have much in the way of controversial homebrew. It tends to be rules I don't allow that would be a tiny bit controversial to some. Most controversial change I can think of is that I made a change to the Gaius spell, which allows the damage it does to not be healed while under the effects of Gaius, as a way to give it some actual deterrence. Potions still take an action, but instead of rolling them, you get max HP back. When taking a class at first level or a multi-class, you can change all references from one mental stat into another. Take a monk, but have all their features use intelligence instead of wisdom, for example. I'm sure it can get broken, but so far my players haven't done a combo worse than any pal lock or sore lock I've encountered. I'm still waiting to see what a bard wizard or a druid paladin might look like. The hunter subclass. The hunter gets all the options. It has never once been too strong, just makes the ranger feel versatile like they should be. Along with that, rangers get all the spells, just choose which ones to prepare after a long rest. A homebrew magic item tattoo that's the equivalent of +1, 2, 3 weapons, but for unarmed strikes. Now that's a way to really encourage players to start using their fists and feet, rather than having them wear clunky gloves or the bracelets of power. Now you can just tattoo it on and walk away. At my main table, we maximize any dice rolls that would interact with hit points. Damage, healing, hit dice for recovery, HP totals for every level up, temporary HP granted from any source, etc. It wasn't a decision made lightly, but 3 of the 5 people at that table have at least partial dyslexia, and constantly reading dice can cause migraines. The math and common statistics affecting hit point interactions doesn't even really change. Taking a rolled variable average over a fight versus the rolled average for any participant's hit points stays equivalent if you just use the maximum value for both, on top of removing the long-term punishment for getting a few consecutive low rolls in HP. Knowing the damage output for each attack for certain instead of having to roll for it makes the combat pick up pace more than rolling all the dice at the same time does. This also paved the way for us to implement a glancing blow mechanic, where rolling exactly the target's AC deals the attack's average damage, which can also be pre-recorded on the character sheet. It's not something I'd necessarily want to implement across the board for every game I play, but it's been really useful for that table, both during play and for prep, now that I can directly assume the DPR of a creature at maximum and know for certain how much HP those players' characters will have. I can scale encounters far ahead of time to get a sense of whether a monster I'm interested in using should wait a couple more levels or not. Or if I should replace a creature that a published source puts in that could one-hit kill or perma-kill a character with or without critical from any health range. I don't know if I do anything particularly controversial. The most controversial things around here seem to revolve around rolling stats with various dice combos and whether or not things qualify as railroading. My players still haven't forgiven me for the beginning of one campaign where their characters, in a bar, were drugged unknowingly and captured by NPCs. Well, they argued that if they had known it wasn't just a meet-cute with the other characters, they would have tried to detect the drugged drinks, detected that the bartender was up to no good, but I should have told them to roll something. I still think that, if they were going to be suspicious, they should have told me that they wanted to do those things. But I am fairly accepting of the fact that railroading at all is a very good way to piss off players for literal decades. I learned my lesson. I'm running a very heroic setting and removed cooldowns from the game. If a player wants to use a feature but can't due to hitting their max uses per rest cycle, they can take a level of exhaustion to use it again. There are some small edge cases that I disallow, but not many. Now, you can't use it to upcast a spell. You can't use it on a feature that recovers another resource, such as Arcane Recovery. You can't use it to recover exhaustion by any means. The exhaustion also hits the player directly after they use their feature, so Action Surge into attack doesn't have exhaustion penalties for the attacks. I also run this with a homebrew rest and exhaustion system, which helps to keep it in check. We would all like to know what this is, and maybe that's a future idea for a video. Homebrew systems that you know just works. Charisma is not the plan, it's the execution. It will not unfuck the things you say. It will just make them be said in the most charitable, confident, context-sensitive best way. You still need to make an effort to make an argument, compelling statement, or whatever. Your score determines what you add to the roll, what you say determines the DC. Imagine, if you will, your formative forever DM years being spent with socially stunted maladjusts who thought of charisma as just the win condition for saying whatever I want as bluntly as I want. Jesus. Or some kind of primal force of hotness that compels people to obey. Oh my God, I'm so hot. You must love me. Oh, yes, dear. The solution is apparently controversial, though. But wait, you say, I have a character with plus 29 to persuasion. I'm pretty sure he would be able to fuck any dragon. I'm gonna snort. I could just see a bard doing that, though. This confidence is exactly why this rule exists at my tables. Session 0 usually has one-on-ones with players to get an idea why they're there and to try to have some reciprocal shaping of the initial inertia of any stories or side stories. But my players tend to enjoy the gamified interactions regardless of the affiliated stats. Wizards solve puzzles that require lore, knowledge, or intimate knowledge of certain eccentricities of the world. Their puzzles are usually a mix of premises, evidence, deductive or inductive logic, or creative suggested applications of their spells or fields of knowledge. Intelligence is a facilitator of the randomness, not an I win button that allows you to just brute force me to narrate an answer for you. Bards, sorcerers, warlocks, charlatans, paladins, and anyone who's playing the face who invested in charisma. Your puzzles are frequently social, discerning motivations, providing plausible lies, weaving a story that benefits your party, or actively conveying the message your team needs conveyed at the time. Charisma is not an I win button that allows you to say, I want to make with you, as your sole means to solve all puzzles. And personally, I don't think I have given you 29 persuasion tendies, please give me one sex would be fun for anyone else at the table. Are they dino tendies though? D&D is not a one-on-one wish fulfillment engine. It is a collaborative story or a tactical game, or really anything that acknowledges that the rest of the people at the table are not just a means to your end. As implied by the title, this is the homebrew hill I will die on. Also, as a person who has been the event DM or DM for more diverse groups and somewhat more eclectic gatherings of people, this tends to encourage the people who didn't understand the whole not a one-on-one wish fulfillment engine thing to self-select out of games I'm running, which makes them a safer and more enjoyable experience for everyone involved. I don't feel like a trend of DC flexes on your storytelling effort is a big ask of players. You don't have to be a genius to play one. You don't have to be everybody's romantic ideal to play someone charismatic. The numbers are there to randomize and help, not to reduce the table to a formula. 29 plus dragon does not equal fuck. 29 plus dragon plus compelling reason, approach, whatever is fun for the story, and or at least gives something interesting to the table equals I will fade to black, but sure, fuck it, dragon. I really agree with that DM, and I really, really love them for their stance. Hey everybody, Brian Von Vier here, back at it again, checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know down below what was precious to you that you would consider controversial homebrew. We love you all, be safe, be happy, and no butt-touching dragons. Sometimes.